Welcome to this newsletter. My intention with these newsletters is to do something different than how I've been blogging in the past. I want to dig in deeper into one particular theme. I think this is really important because you have to do less and go deeper to find a way to work with certain concepts more than just in a superficial way. So in this newsletter, I want to share like a core theme, a short article with a story, a practice tip, of course, because you need to find a way to have a tool that's tangible and some action steps so you actually can practice it. Some quotes, from the industry, from books that kind of drive home the core theme. Resources, of course, like the trainings that we have coming up. And I also want to explore more into the wider mental training community, see what's going on there, and then share that with you also. And then finally, if there are any announcements that I feel need to be made. So the core theme for this newsletter is attention, and that's what we're going to dig in here. The article I titled Attention Means Attention, and I'll start with a story. Um, this is a little Zen story, and it goes like this. A student said to Master Ichu, "Please write me something of great wisdom." Master Ichu picked up his brush and wrote one word, attention. The student asked, "Is that all?" The master wrote, "Attention, attention." The student seemed irritable. "That doesn't seem very profound or subtle." In response, Master Ichu wrote simply, "Attention, attention, attention." In frustration, the student demanded, "What does this word attention mean?" And Master Ichu replied, "Attention means attention." So when we think about this story, we see that Master Ichu, he sees the wisdom in just this one word. And in mental training, this is, of course, central to everything that we do. How you're focusing your attention is going to determine what the kind of life that you're going to have. So everybody wants your attention. People say that this is an attention economy. So you want to be aware of, external um, things or people or organizations that are wanting to pull your attention away from yourself. Like, in other words, rule how your attention is going to be focused instead of you deciding intentionally how you're going to focus your attention. Now, so everybody wants your attention. I want your attention right now to, listen to this video. Um, One thing that comes to mind is this book that Amishi Jha wrote called Peak Mind. And in it, right at the very beginning, in the introduction, she titles this introduction, "May I Have Your Attention, Please?" And the very first sentence is, "You're missing 50% of your life, and you're not alone. Everyone is." So uh, if you're missing knowing where half of your attention is being focused, then what kind of a life is that creating for yourself? So you need to find a way to gain some command over your attention. Let's give a simple example. The company Target has a slogan, "Expect more, pay less." Yeah, expect more, pay less. Well, they obviously have this slogan to motivate you to grab your attention so that you go to Target and purchase their products. Nothing wrong with that. We all are looking to motivate and grab people's attention so that they can do what we need them to do, so that we can survive as a business. So target, like any company, is targeting, pun intended, your attention, your comfort-seeking motivation, your desire to improve your life, to be more comfortable, to get you to buy their products. So attention is the currency that you're spending to create the kind of life you're going to have. And the thing that you want to be aware of, and this is where mental training is so insightful and so interesting, is you need to develop an appropriate relationship with your mind. And what that means is you want to understand more what's going on up here. Like, how is your mind motivated? How is your mind, or how is that motivation then influencing where your attention gets focused? So I found, studying mental training for over 30 years, that there's one central tendency, and let's not call it limiting tendency right now. Let's just call it a tendency. There's a natural tendency of the mind to be comfort seeking. Let's frame it this way. It's a natural comfort seeking motivation that's unconscious and undirected. Okay, so let's look at these descriptors of this limitation of the mind, or this natural tendency of the mind. First of all, comfort seeking, there's nothing wrong with that. Like, we are motivated to go the easiest way through life so that we can survive. There's nothing wrong with that. That gets us through, to our destination using Google Maps, for example. In rock climbing, we're looking for the easiest way to climb through a stressful rock climb. That's very natural and to be expected. However, if it's unconscious, then you're not going to be aware of how your mind is constantly directing you away from the stress that is helpful to engage, and so you're going to avoid stress. And stress is where you learn. So you want to make sure that this is the directed part, you're directing that natural comfort-seeking tendency of the mind toward the stress that stands between you and your goal. This is beautiful in how this works in rock climbing. You're at the bottom of a climb, you want to get to the top of a climb, this is your goal, and you're pointing this natural tendency to be comfortable in the direction of the stress that stands between you and your goal. And you're looking for the path of least resistance, the easiest way through the stress to your goal. So you're still motivated by comfort, but you're looking for comfort in the midst of the stress instead of just avoiding the stress. Very important point. Mental training is about a lot of different things, but here, particularly around attention, it's becoming conscious of this natural tendency of the mind and then doing something about it. And what you're doing about it is you're becoming conscious, you're becoming aware of when your mind is just directing you toward comfort to avoid stress, and then you're directing it toward the stress that stands between you and those things that are important to you that you want to accomplish. So in summary, you want to gain some command of your attention, and this becoming more aware of what's going on up here and then directing your attention more purposefully helps you gain more command over your attention and then more command over your life. So Master Itchu, just to bring it back to that story, he said attention means attention. You may not know exactly what he means by that, and it's probably a lot of Zen answers are not intended to be logical or understandable, but they're designed to drive home specific points without necessarily having to intellectually understand them. There's a simplicity in it. But if you're gaining command over your attention, then you'll be living and experiencing more of what it means, of what attention means, what that means. This is the warrior's way. That's what we call this training method. So I like to look also through these concepts through the lens of the warrior. So the goal of this training is to live as an impeccable warrior. Okay, live as an impeccable warrior. Impeccable simply means flawlessly. So this is kind of a goal that we're pointing our attention toward. And the process that we're working toward that goal is impeccable use of our attention. So if you're gaining more command over your attention, meaning that you're becoming more aware of your mind's natural comfort-seeking tendencies, how it will guide you toward avoiding stress, and then you're intentionally directing your attention toward the stress so you can learn and grow, then you're using your attention more impeccably, and then you can live more as an impeccable warrior. So that's how that ties in. I want to give you a tool and then action steps for being able to apply that tool. And this tool will give you more command over your attention, and it's going to help you be more intentional. In other words, you're choosing to focus your attention in a very specific way so that you can influence it being focused differently. And that, of course, leads to having more command over your attention. Now, the main thing in this tool is, and in the way we're approaching mental training in general, is getting more practiced and experienced in focusing your attention somatically. There's a big tendency for attention to be just lost in the mind, intellectualizing, trying to make sense out of everything, where you can't recognize the thinking when it occurs. You can't recognize thoughts when they occur. So practicing or having a practice where you're focusing your attention somatically in the body, that helps create a gap between awareness and thinking. So there becomes a gap between a thought that comes up and you recognizing that a thought comes up. So that's critically important for being able to not be reactive to the kinds of thoughts that are going on in your mind, but actually have some space, a gap for some space for awareness to occur, so you can then rather respond in a more helpful way with how you're directing your attention. So the tool is, your intention is to focus your attention. You're choosing to focus your attention on what I call a grounded observational state. A GOS, a grounded observational state. And that includes two aspects, an internal aspect and an external aspect. The internal aspect is EB, it's expanded body. And what you're focusing on is breathing, relaxing tensions, and expanding your body posture so that you're not contracting your body. So that's the internal element. EB, expanded body, breathing, relaxing, and proper body posture. The outward arrow or outward direction is OM, or observant mind. And there you're focusing your attention on your senses, what you can feel on your skin, what you can hear, and then what you can see with a soft eye gaze. So none of that has anything to do with thinking. It's somatically focused. So your body is always in the present moment. And here you're focusing your attention so your mind can also be present. When you're focusing on breathing, relaxing, proper body posture, and what you can feel, hear, and see, not thinking about these things, then your mind is present like your body's present, and you get more practice over time doing this daily so that you can start creating this gap between thinking and your awareness of the thinking. Creating that gap. Creating that gap is becoming more conscious. Now, you're setting this intention for the GOS, grounded observational state, in this double arrowed way in the morning. And then throughout the day, you need to practice catching yourself when your attention's lost in thought, and then bring it back to this grounded observational state over and over again. If you just do it once in the morning, it's not going to have very much effect at all. Now, pulling some quotes from the literature and from people I know, I have a friend that he likes to say, pay attention. The key word is pay. And this comes from Winston Cunningham. And this is a really important quote because pay really is the most important word in this phrase. You know, in the English language at least, there's many references of people communicating with each other saying, pay attention. Well, pay here, you're paying with your attention. And how you're paying with your attention is with effort. Like you're creating some effort toward this intention that you set in the morning about being focused in this grounded observational state, and then noticing and redirecting your attention all day long. That's how you pay attention, where pay is the key word. Another quote comes from my book, The Rock Warriors Way. Attention is awareness, heightened and focused, the intentional directing of awareness. Almost everything you will learn in The Warrior's Way boils down to attention and what you do with it. Proper use of attention in warrior speak is impeccability. So here you can be aware, but the intentional directing of awareness creates attention, creates this active form of awareness, because you're going to be actively engaged in your activities in the world as you go through, navigate your day. And you see that I included this word impeccability because it directs again to this importance of focusing your attention impeccably so that you can live as an impeccable warrior. Some resources. I referenced Amishi Jha's book, Peak Mind, earlier, and there's another really profound section in it that early on in the book that I found it just extremely insightful. Highly recommend that you get this book, but here it goes. Could mindfulness training protect and strengthen attention? She's asking this question. The answer was a resounding yes. In fact, mindfulness training was the only brain training tool that consistently worked to strengthen attention across our studies. So she's emphasizing two words here. She has them in italics in the quote in the book. First of all, yes. She's emphasizing that yes, mindfulness training trains attention. But then she's also emphasizing the word only, meaning that there's a lot of other ways that you have been taught about training attention that might work, for the short term, but if you're looking for a long-term sustainable strengthening of your attention, mindfulness training is really key. Now, in this training, I've emphasized over the years the importance of neutral thinking. I don't believe in positive thinking because the reality of the world is that you have a both and reality, just like the inhale and exhale of a breath, just like the night and day of a day cycle, a 24-hour day cycle. If you're trying to think positively all the time, the negative thinking is going to impact on you. Rather, you want to be able to observe what's going on up here again. This is mental training. You step back to be able to observe positive thoughts and negative thoughts, and then decide intentionally about how you're going to use your attention to move forward. It's called Change How You Pay Attention. This comes from Les Fehmi's book, Open Focused Brain. And I have the blog post of that on our website and also a video for it. And if you sign up for our email list, then you'll get this newsletter via email, and then they'll have those links where you can go and either watch those videos or read the blogs. Of course, you got my books, Rock Warriors Way and Espresso Lessons. Rock Warriors Way is a more philosophical treatment of the material. Espresso Lessons is a practical treatment of the material. They both go into all of the material comprehensively. The trainings that are coming up now, I'm focusing on the general public, the non-climbing direction for this company. And I teach retreats, I do remote coaching, and I do speaking. So the retreats are really cool because you're in a relaxed environment. We do lecture, we do some experiential drills, and then debrief discussions to help you integrate this training. And it collectively goes through all of it for how to apply it, in life. I leave you with a very practical structure for being able to do that at the end of the retreats. And the coaching follows the same curricula of the retreats. There are 10 sessions. Each session takes you through these important parts for bridging all of the training to life. I also do speaking engagements, and I got one coming up in Patagonia in Nashville, how to apply the Warriors Way mental training to life. And we'll also be doing at Patagonia in Nashville on the 30th of August, a 1-hour experiential event, where you can learn how to apply the training in your life. It's a way of taking what I'm presenting on the 19th of August at Patagonia in a very experiential way on the 30th. We also have climbing training that the Warriors Way trainer team is continuing. So there's links on our website for that. So let's go to looking for coaching and training. The beginning of this year, 2026, I transitioned the climbing training business to my trainer, Alma Esteban in France. So she is continuing to focus on building on what I've created to this point to grow the climbing training business and into the community, to continue to offer this, for the climbing community and industry. So I'm really happy about that because I want this training to be able to continue as I shift into this new non-climbing direction. So enjoy your journey and your practice.